This act introduces the forbidden blueprint of the Blohm Voss BV 141. In an era where aviation was obsessed with perfect mirrored symmetry, designer Richard Vogt proposed a radical, illegal design that seemingly broke the laws of balance. We explore the visual advantage. By moving the entire crew into a separate glazed nacelle on the wing, the observer had a 360-degree field of vision, free from the blind spot created by a central engine and spinning propeller. This wasn't just a quirk, it was a strategic innovation meant to make the BV 141 the ultimate invisible eye of the Luftwaffe. The technical scandal of this act focuses on the torque secret. To the untrained eye, a lopsided plane should have spun out of control the moment the engine started. We dive into the forbidden math Vogt used. He calculated that the massive torque of the 1,000-horsepower BMW engine, which usually tried to pull a plane to one side, could be perfectly countered by the drag and weight of the offset crew pod. It was a self-stabilizing system that turned a physical weakness into a flight strength. We detail the early secret wind tunnel tests where high-ranking officials watched in disbelief as the half-plane models remained perfectly level. The final segment of Act 1 covers the initial shock of the test pilots. When the first prototype rolled onto the tarmac, the ground crews reportedly joked that the other half of the plane had been left in the factory. We describe the harrowing first takeoff, where the pilot had to ignore every instinct of central balance. This act concludes with the successful maiden flight, proving that while the BV 141 looked like an illegal mistake, it was actually one of the most aerodynamically stable platforms ever conceived, setting the stage for a political battle that would eventually kill the project. This segment dives into the illegal flight experience of the BV 141, a machine that forced pilots to unlearn everything they knew about aviation. We start with the asymmetric cockpit. The crew sat in a nacelle shifted several feet to the right of the engine's thrust line. For a pilot, this created a terrifying psychological effect known as visual yaw. Even when the plane was flying perfectly straight, the pilot's brain insisted they were drifting sideways. We detail the accounts of Luftwaffe test pilots who described the sensation of flying in a sidecar, where every adjustment felt like it was happening to someone else's aircraft. The technical scandal of this act focuses on the glass coffin and its combat implications. Unlike standard reconnaissance planes, where the tail and engine blocked the view, the BV 141 was a masterpiece of visibility. We examined the structural forbidden fix. Because the crew pod was made of over 60% plexiglass, it had almost no armored protection. We explored the vibration nightmare. Since the pod was mounted on a single massive wing spar, any engine flutter or harmonic resonance was amplified through the wing, causing the entire crew cabin to shake violently during high-speed dives. This section analyzes the physics of survival, where observers had to learn how to operate cameras and machine guns while hovering in a vibrating glass bubble. The final minutes of Act 2 cover the landing hazard. Because the landing gear was also asymmetric to handle the lopsided weight distribution, touching down required a forbidden maneuver. If the pilot didn't land on the engine side wheel first, the torque of the propeller would cause the plane to cartwheel across the runway. We describe secret training footage that captured multiple near misses, reinforcing the high command's fear that the BV 141 was too illegal for the average pilot to handle.
This act concludes with the aircraft successfully completing its combat evaluation, only to be met with a cold, bureaucratic wall of rejection.
The final act explores why this miracle of math never saw mass production, detailing a deep descent into the political sabotage and eventual great erasure of the BV-141. The forbidden truth was that the BV-141's greatest enemy wasn't physics, but Nazi aesthetics. We examine the Ministry of Perfection, the Reichsluftfahrtministerium, RLM. High-ranking officials, including Ernst Udet, were repulsed by the aircraft. They felt an asymmetric plane was an insult to German pride, suggesting that the Luftwaffe was so desperate they couldn't even build a whole aircraft. We detail the illegal bias in the 1940 competition. Despite the BV-141 having a shorter takeoff run and better visibility than the Focke-Wulf FW-189 Uhu, the contract was handed to Focke-Wulf simply because their plane looked correct. This segment covers the forbidden supply chain. To kill the project without admitting it was superior, the RLM used a bureaucratic trick: engine allocation. The BV-141 required the powerful BMW 801 engine, the same engine needed for the FW-190 fighter. We reveal how the government illegally prioritized fighter production, not just out of necessity, but as a convenient excuse to starve the BV-141 project of parts. We explore Richard Vogt's desperate attempt to save the plane with the BV-141B variant, which used a different engine, but required even more radical asymmetric ballast to stay level, making the plane even more alien to the horrified generals. The final portion details the death of the Symmetry Breaker. As the war turned against Germany, the few operational BV-141s were relegated to obscure test units. We cover the secret scrapping. As Allied forces closed in, the Nazi command ordered the destruction of the prototypes to ensure the shameful lopsided design wouldn't be captured and mocked. We analyze the physics of regret, how late-war reconnaissance suffered because pilots were stuck in symmetrical planes with massive blind spots. We conclude with the legacy of Richard Vogt, who was brought to the U.S. under Operation Paperclip. While his asymmetric genius was buried in secret archives for decades, the BV-141 remains a haunting reminder that in the world of war, looking right often matters more than being right.